Reaching the summit is only half the journey. The real struggle begins on the way down. This is why success on Everest is not just about climbing to the top but also about descending safely. This is the story of how an 1880 48-meter mountain reminds climbers who dare to challenge it that it is not an ordinary mountain but rather a monster. Let's take a look together at one of the greatest disasters in Everest history. Since the first ascent of Everest was made by Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay in 1953, Everest's fame has continued to grow exponentially, thanks to increasingly advanced technology. Nowadays, even people without mountaineering experience can climb this mountain. What I'm describing caused a rush of climbers to Everest in 1996. Companies were promising to safely take people to the summit and back down for an average of $65,000. Climbers from almost every country were flocking here. Two of these groups were very large and had been climbing this mountain for years. One of these teams was Adventure Consultants, and the other was Mountain Madness. The leader of Adventure Consultants was Rob Hall, while the team leader of Mountain Madness was Scott Fisher. While these two companies were rivals, there was a friendship between the two leaders. Rob had set the summit date as May 10th. This is why other companies had also chosen the same date. So on May 10th, multiple teams would be attempting the summit. Within the team were people trying to complete the 7 Summits project, climbing the highest peaks of all 7 continents. One was Japanese climber Yasuko Namba, who had climbed 6 summits with only Everest remaining. Another attempting the summit was American climber Beck Weathers. Feeling depressed, he had found himself in the mountains and had brought his relationship with his family to the brink of breaking. The leader of Beck's team, Rob, had summited 5 times before. Climbers wanting to ascend Everest go through an acclimatization process. What they do here is adapt themselves to Everest's harsh conditions. The team had begun these procedures in April. On May 9th, they set out for Camp 4, also known as the High Camp, to attempt the summit. On May 10th, as the wind slowed, they departed at 0:30 at night. Their goal was to reach the summit at noon and return by 2 p.m. As the climbers approached the summit, they encountered a problem. The ropes that would take them to the summit weren't ready. In this freezing and deadly place, they waited for hours doing nothing while the route was being set up again. This caused a delay in their planned summit time. On top of that, some climbers were inexperienced and were slowing down progress. Some climbers, thinking their oxygen wouldn't last, gave up their summit dreams and decided to turn back. Rob had told his team, whether you summit or not, we're turning back around 2 p.m. The reason was the danger of running out of oxygen since they were in the death zone. But this time rule wasn't followed. Beck, experiencing vision loss due to an eye surgery he had undergone a few years earlier, couldn't go to the summit and sat in a corner waiting for the team to return. When the first returning team said join us, he refused, saying, I'll wait for Rob. This was a big mistake for him, because Rob would never return from there. Despite the return time having passed, the team was still trying to reach the summit. Among them was Doug Hansen. When Rob and the team set out for the descent around 3 p.m., they ran into Doug. Despite telling him it was too late, he was determined to summit since he had failed once before. At this time, Scott Fisher, the leader of the Mountain Madness team, was also with the Adventure Consultants team and had become exhausted and ill from climbing too fast to the summit. Rob decided to take Doug with him and take him to the summit, telling the rest of the team to go back down. After Doug reached the summit, they immediately began the descent, but Doug had contracted altitude sickness and was starting to lose consciousness. At this moment, a powerful snowstorm began. Winds exceeding 100 kilometers per hour started pounding the mountain. This made the descent extremely difficult. Visibility dropped to 0, and they were trying to reach camp while struggling to maintain balance in the violent winds. On the way down, Doug and Scott lost their lives. Rob, having exhausted himself trying to save Doug, weakened and called for help. Andy Harris returned without hesitation to help Rob. Unfortunately, neither Rob nor Andy could return. Unlike Rob, we have no information about what happened to Andy because his body was never found. The team Beck was in got lost and disoriented while trying to return to camp. Stranded on a slope, the team huddled together for warmth and had to spend the night there. During this time, Beck's glove was lost and his hands began to freeze. At this point, Russian climber Anatoly Bukrev, who had descended to camp but went out to check if anyone was stranded on the mountain, found them. After rescuing those among them who could walk, he left. Before leaving, Anatoly looked at Yasuko and Beck and saw they were completely frozen, so he left them there. When they returned in the morning to check the situation, they found Yasuko and Beck alive, but left them because they had entered deep hypothermic coma. No one had ever returned from this condition before. Base camp had informed Beck's wife that her husband was dead. When night came, a miracle happened, and Beck awoke from this coma, barely able to walk. He made it to the camp. Here the teams immediately provided first aid and sent word to base camp. The next morning the team got him down to camp. With his frozen feet and hands, Beck couldn't pass through the Khumbu icefall, an area with deep glacial crevasses. Thanks to his wife's efforts, he was rescued by a helicopter belonging to the Nepalese army in an operation never before seen at that altitude. The helicopter could have crashed due to strong turbulence, but having safely picked up Beck, the pilot immediately headed for the capital, Kathmandu. Beck's recovery process took months. He had completely lost his fingers, some toes, and his nose. A new nose was made for Beck using cartilage taken from his ear and skin from his neck. What Beck went through repaired his family's fraying bonds, and he reconciled with his wife, who had been on the verge of divorce, and they lived a happy life. Beck recounted all his experiences in his book Left for Dead: My Journey Home from Everest. Rob Hall, Doug Hansen, and Andy Harris died in an area called the Hillary Step, while Scott Fisher perished just below the Hillary Step. Yasuko was near Camp 4. As I mentioned, there were other groups, and they shared the same fate. The climber known as Green Boots, Tuswang Paljor, lost his life on the North Ridge. The whereabouts of the other 2 team members who climbed with him are unknown. This accident was a chain of events resulting from human errors, bad luck, and conflicts of interest from companies driven by commercial concerns. Perhaps if the 2 o'clock rule had been followed from the beginning, everyone would have survived without problems. That's all from me for this week. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hope to see you in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.